Hey, welcome to Courageous Conviction. Today we have a special guest, Bonnie, who's going to be with us today and tell us a little bit of story about her coming back to the church after many, many years of being away from the church. Some reasons why they're falling away, but mostly to focus on the reason of why she's came back, and some of her recent activities and things she's experienced in her life after she's made these changes and came back. So, Bonnie, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us today.
You're welcome.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am 79 years old. I'm a widow. I had 3 children. I lost my daughter and her children about 18 years ago. I remarried a wonderful man after my original divorce. And I've been very active here in Lodi with my granddaughter and my grandchildren and my family. I visit with them weekly. I'm very happy to have moved from Connecticut to California. I love living back out here in California again. I moved to the East Coast about 35 years ago, and met a wonderful man, got married, and we were married up until 2021 October, and he passed away. And then I moved out here to California.
Okay, great. You are a convert to the church, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay. You were, once you were converted when you were already an adult, already married, adult,
married,
children.
And 3 children. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you came into the church, it was a process, right? You joined the church, so your kids joined the church, and your husband joined later.
My husband, a couple of years. It took 2 years, and he joined.
Yeah. Okay. And then there were things, understanding things that were kind of rough in the relationship too. But there were things that were taking place too that we talked about prior to airing that in the church. What do you think were some of the reasons why you stopped going to church?
Oh, just the conflicts with the people. I put aside the fact that the church is perfect, but the people are not, and I allowed some of the people to get under my skin in the church, which I should never have done. I stayed very close to our bishop and to a lot of my church friends, but the people that were, causing some of the conflict with my children and my ex-husband, I avoided. I eventually, with leaving the church, how I left was I went on a trip. My husband and I were getting a divorce. Things weren't good in the relationship, and he had left the church a couple of years. He'd been away, and I stayed active because of my children, but my children were also kind of blocking the church with seminary in the morning and with just a lot of the things that were happening with summer camp and the conflict with some of the kids because of the parents and the things that were being said. But then my son stayed in the church, very active. He went on a mission for 2 years. He went to Sao Paulo, Brazil. He came home from a mission when his dad and I had decided to get a divorce finally. And then I went on a trip with my girlfriend to Hawaii. And while we were there, she was wearing these really cute outfits. And I decided I'm going to take my garments off and buy one of those cute outfits and wear one of those cute outfits. And it just seemed like everything went downhill when I took my garments off.
How funny that is, in recent general conference too, the last couple of general conferences has really been encouraging us to wear our garments.
So important.
And sometimes, I'll be honest, that sometimes I feel like I wish that they're made with better quality, because I get rashes.
Oh.
Yeah, and especially because I sweat a lot. So it's really hard for me in the heat, a lot of times, to sometimes certain work and stuff like that. And so I have to make a very conscious effort to try to be honest with myself in the garments and the importance of that. And so it is important to us, because it seems like when we take that garment off, we take off our shield of our testimony almost. I think it's more of a psychological thing.
Well, it puts you back into the worldly world. You're not, even though you're still spiritual in your mind. You allow yourself to become part of this world, part of that society that are doing things that are morally not really the right things, not the things that Christ would really want you to be doing. Then I would have cocktails with I didn't in the beginning, but then later I would have cocktails with my girlfriends. And then I started dating, and I lost the moral.
Would you say it was a slow decline?
It was slow. It was slow.
Something you constantly just said, I'm done, I'm leaving.
No.
It was just a slow kind of, edging back.
I allowed bad influences into my life, which I should never have done. But I experienced a lot. The most grateful thing that I have felt in the last, first of all, meeting my husband was an absolute blessing, even though he was Catholic, a devout Catholic. It was beautiful because I had Christ in my life, and we went to church almost every single morning because he was going to be a priest, and he had left the priesthood because he knew that there was more to life. He wanted to be married and have children, and he had 2 children of his own, and they were 18 and 19 when we married.
So let me jump back a little bit.
Okay.
And you keep going that. While you were active in the church, before you fell away, where you had certain what callings and leadership roles did you?
I was in the Relief Society presidency. I was started out in Relief Society as a teacher, and then I went on to become the first counselor, second counselor over homemaking. Then I had a stake calling in the Relief Society, which was beautiful. At the same time, I also had some primary calling, and I had a calling for I had 3 callings at one time, which during my husband and I weren't getting along, and it was very overwhelming. So finally I asked the bishop to release me from 2 of my callings, and I just kept one. And then they put me in a calling which I could never figure out why they did it. Prior to my deciding I wanted a divorce, was a calling over this senior adults, unmarried, unwed adults. I can't remember the
your unmarried adults.
Yeah.
You have your young adults, then you have your adults.
And then I'm going, why would you put me with all these unmarried people? What am I supposed to do? So I put on parties at my house for them, and we had a lot of get-togethers all through the stake, and in different areas of California. We had a lot of activities for the special interest group, and but then now looking back, the Lord knew that calling, I needed to be in that calling, because he knew what my future was going to be.
One of them.
That I would be one of them. Never dreamed I would ever. 25 years of married to this man.
So
The first man.
So would you say, so when you were not active, you were talking about you're with your second husband.
Yeah.
Were you were active, then you were going to the Catholic Church?
I did the Catholic Church.
So you were inactive for over 35 years then.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's come full circle now. We've heard enough about, I think, why you laugh, and I think many of us leave the same way. It just, maybe it's not intentional.
Yeah,
it's just a slow, gradual things. We get our feelings hurt or whatever. Satan.
Satan stepped in.
He knows that. He just puts little tiny things in there, brings people in your life to kind of help you pull you a little further away, You don't quite realize it, do you?
No, you don't realize it. And at the time, you're young, and you're not really thinking about
consequences.
And what's really. Oh, I thought about the consequences.
Oh, you did?
I was very concerned about the consequences because I had a good religious depth of the church, and my feeling towards God and what was right and what was wrong. But I allowed myself to just become part of society and do what my friends were doing.
It's easier that way. People around us. I think it's more difficult to actually maintain that standard. I understand that. So then let's come full circle now. 35 plus years go by. It's a long time to be away from the church.
It was.
You're pushing towards 80. You're in good health. Your husband passes away. You move back to your home city, your home state, and you reunite your family again. And then something happens that you decide you're going to go back to church.
Now, I've always had a testimony of the church. I always knew that the LDS church was the perfect church and it was the right church. I never got that total feeling going to the Catholic Church. I didn't have that total fulfillment that I have when I'm in the LDS church, with the knowledge that we have of our lives here on earth being sealed to our families, and then going on to the other kingdoms down the road after we leave. And when I was thinking about coming back, I told my granddaughter, a couple of years before coming back, that if I ever was to come back to California, that I would go back to the LDS church. I would go back to church.
So the seed of your testimony was then planted, and you never uprooted that seed.
Never uprooted.
Yeah, I was the same way. I never uprooted the seed. I knew the choices I made when I became less active were choices I made. I knew it had nothing to do with church. Now, the people of the church, different story. And as you mentioned earlier, the church is perfect. The church is perfect in its restoration. The people are the ones that tend
we have to always remember that the church is perfect, but the people are not.
Yeah,
we're not perfect. We're human beings, and we're going to choose, and not willingly, not realizing, I mean, that we're doing it and making mistakes.
And it takes an art of patience to really go to church, especially today with so much division today. Art of patience to go to church and sit there and allow people to be people, and allow the Lord to be the Lord. It's kind of difficult, isn't it?
It's very difficult, but you have to remember you're there for Jesus Christ
and for yourself,
God the Father, and for yourself. But my love is for my God, my Father. He comes first.
Well, that's interesting. That's neat to hear. Now, let me ask you some tough questions. During your life, you had events in your life where you could have cursed God and blamed God for tragic things that happened in your life.
I could have, but I never did. Never did blame God.
Yeah, I'm just going to mention briefly. You say you lost your daughter.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, and that was to a brutal murder. We won't go into that detail.
She was murdered, and her husband murdered her, and then he turned around.
Her own husband murdered
her. Her own husband, the father of her 2 little children, and he turned around and he killed her 2 children.
And they were what, 4 and 2?
4 and 2 years. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a very tragic and sad event. Now, you could have very easily, and there's a lot of people out there that will probably listen to this interview that would take an event like that and blame God and say, "Okay, God, if you'd allow something such innocent children and my innocent daughter."
Those thoughts go through your mind. Why would why would you take those children? But he didn't take those children's lives. Donald, her husband, took their lives. He committed this crime, these sins, these horrible sins. God didn't, God doesn't have control of our emotions, our feelings. We as human beings have to stay in control of our own feelings and our own emotions. Controlling our emotions is one of the most important things I think we can do every single day. We have to be able to control the way we feel and the thoughts that we have in our head. And if we have thoughts towards killing your family, that's sad. You should try, if you have those thoughts, I could just kill him. You need not even jokingly think those things.
I think Satan plays on that anymore.
Satan does play on it.
He's very powerful these days. You get a thought in your head, and I noticed for me, and coming back to, I don't want to get away from that too much, but I noticed for me that it's a daily battle, especially having been outside. And I always used to tell my kids, if you never taste the apple, then you don't know what an apple tastes like, right? Especially having been in the world and experienced some of the things you call fun in the world, right? That cause a lot of us to leave that covenant path. It's fun. It's and the world is made about having fun and being happy.
Right? We're supposed to have fun and be happy, but we have to watch there's a moral issue there, and you have to be able to control your morals.
Well,
And
may I add this? Maybe, I mean, we're there's nothing against having fun, nothing against happiness, but I think our pursuit here is more in we sometimes forget what our purpose is in life, and that is family and joy. You know, we find a purpose, a work for a purpose. And I think that's what the world gets away from, is that individual purpose, the individual responsibility. It's just much easier to blow it off and say, you know, I got to think about me, right? And then I'll worry about that later. And a lot of times we don't get around to worrying about it. We get so caught up in thinking about me for 35, 40 years before we get married nowadays, the kids, that it's very difficult to come into a relationship when you've had so much me time, right?
yeah, that's true.
So coming back to this now, so you had these challenging times. You could have cursed your father, you could have cursed your savior, and used that really as an excuse to really never come back to him.
So I could have, but I personally clung to God. Thank God for my husband being the religious man that he is. It helped me also to grasp God in during this hard time that I was going through and still go through. But I know that Christ didn't take their lives. I don't know if it was planned. I know God knew probably that it was going to happen. I feel that because everything is planned out.
Well,
But
well, and just to give a little bit there. It's funny, we're reading from Jesus Christ this morning, and it mentions in this, like chapter 3, I think, at the beginning, talked about how the foreknowledge of God, that He knows our decisions, He knows the outcome, but there is no plan of that goes against our agency. Nothing's controlled.
that's just it. We have our agencies.
Yeah, we have our
and our
agency.
agencies are what control what's happening around us.
Yeah.
And we, as my daughter had called me the evening that this took place, and she said that my husband came home from work and he's just in a weird mood, that I don't know what's going on, but she said he's acting very strange. And I told her to take her children and go to her father's house, which was about a half an hour away. And then I told her to call the police. And because she had had problems with him being violent with her, and in California, she had had a restraining order against him. Why she took him back, I'm not quite sure. And they moved to Idaho. But anyway,
It's
she
it's
didn't leave, and he went out to the garage, got his shotgun, came in and shot her, and then turned around and shot him.
I'm going to ask one other side note, just as a side note, and not just the gospel, but that would be an easy case for you also to be very much against guns, having lost your daughter and your grandchildren.
That's interesting. No, because growing up with guns my whole life and coming from a family that hunt, uh, I I'm not I I'm not against guns. I'm not against guns at all. Pistols, I'm not against pistols either for self-protection. Um,
I guess
yeah,
I guess it comes back to
it.
your understanding of agency.
That's
what it comes down to.
exactly what it
Yeah.
is. It is. It's
Because anybody can kill with anything, right?
Yeah.
And the idea is interview.
Look what's happening nowadays. They're using knives.
Yeah,
Here
exactly.
all over California, all these killings lately have been all stabbing. Everybody's being stabbed to death.
Yeah, well, even in London, they have a higher homicide rate than New York City does, and they have no gun rights. The police don't even have gun rights, as far as I know. So it's mostly knives, right? So then the next step is to banish the knives, but I don't want to go there.
We can't
Yeah.
banish knives. We have to have our knives.
Well, though they make kitchen knives and there's certain type of knives, like for the buck knives, stuff like that.
It doesn't matter.
When I lived in Latin America, they had already made the knives a lethal weapon. You can go to prison for a knife as well as having a shotgun shell with down Ecuador, for example, right? And you know, but unfortunately, the immigration issue got so bad there that they had to give them back their gun rights about 8 months ago. Right. So I want to get back to this though. That's a whole nother subject. What was the subject on agency? And that's what I want to come back to. So in your agency, 35 plus years being away, and you come back. Let's celebrate that. You come back, you start paying tithing, which is difficult for you. It was difficult for you to budget yourself. You like to spend, you like to shop.
Yep.
I know you a little bit. I know you a little bit.
Yep.
And so it's difficult you to take a big chunk of that money now because now you're a widow, so you're collecting a little bit of money here. It would be beautiful to live off of and have enough to shop every month.
I would have had, yes.
Yes. And I've seen you make this huge effort now to try to discipline yourself from your shopping.
Yes.
And pay tithing.
Pay my tithing.
And you just went back to the temple for the first time in 35 plus years.
Yeah, I finally made it back to the temple. And
tell us a bit about that experience. How was that experience?
That was a beautiful experience. I went into the temple. Well, you know, before we even going to the temple, after I went back into church, I'm coming back into church. I've already have my endowments. So I went to the bishop and talked to the bishop and told him that I want to go to the temple. I want to get back to the temple. I'm missing that, and I'm missing wearing my garments. And he said, well, there's no reason that you can't wear your garments. You're paying tithing and you're obeying the words of wisdom in the church. You know, you're obeying the policies, the things that we believe in, and you don't believe in.
Basically, he informed you that no matter what, you should be wearing your garments.
You should be wearing your garments. So I was so excited when he and his secretary who tried to help me order them online. It was just that the minute I put them on, I felt like $1 million. I felt whole again. I felt so good. I just can't explain the feeling. It was just such a beautiful spiritual experience, and I was just in awe over how I felt. And then I couldn't wait. I was so excited to get back to the temple. And then going into the temple was absolutely beautiful. And it was lovely. I went in, rode up with the stake president and the first counselor, my granddaughter and her husband. And he was going through for the first time. And it was just a beautiful experience. I can't say. And I felt spirit so strong in the temple. I just felt, and I actually even felt the spirit of my first husband who had passed away. I felt him there at the same time. And I knew that even though I didn't love him, I wasn't in love with him, but the fact that we were sealed together and our family is sealed together, I don't want to get a temple divorce or anything like that so that I can be sealed to my late husband, whom I dearly love. And I just felt this beautiful, beautiful feeling came over me. And now I'm working towards having my one of my grandsons who just came home from a mission be baptized for my husband, do the proxy for my husband. And then after I pass away, then somebody can go in and do the marriage and seal to my second husband, which I didn't know you could, but my bishop told me you could.
No, you can't actually. You
Oh,
can't. You can. No, you can only be sealed to one.
Oh,
yeah, you can only be sealed to one. But that'll all work out later. You know, you have a sealing. You make a sealing now, and in a situation like that, whether it's a divorce and a remarriage and so forth, that you have agency still. That all gets worked out later because you're sealed with somebody, and later you find out I don't want to spend eternity with this person. Father, there's a way that's all going to work out. How it's all going to work out, I don't know, but we know our doctrine is that it all works out. You still have agency, and you know, it'll work itself out. Now, I to kind of bring this, kind of wrap this up a little bit. I just wanted to ask, your testimony. What would you tell people today that maybe are struggling out there with their testimonies today? There's a lot of confusion going on out in the church.
There's so much confusion.
What would you tell people today about? Because I mean, those 35 years away. Let me ask this question first. 35 years away. Do you know, when we're away from so long, there's a growth that we miss. Though we may stay active doing certain things, we may even go to different churches. But as you said earlier, what you felt the lack of in those other churches, like I felt, and I identified it later, was the lack of proper authority to be in those positions. That's why they might be good people, right? But that authority that was restored through Jesus Christ is what makes, when people go to church, that's what you feel is that proper priesthood authority. Maybe you don't realize that at this point, but when we're away from that, I know for myself being away from it, I look back and I think to myself, boy, had I stayed active, how much more
Stronger,
knowledge in
so
terms of what I need
stronger
today.
would
Yeah.
you be,
Yeah.
and the knowledge
Yeah.
would be so. I think about that all the time. Had I not, I should have listened to conferences, the talks at the conferences. I had the opportunity to, but I didn't do it. I should have listened to so now I go back and try to listen to older conference talks, which are so fulfilling. They feel so, well, I say fulfilling. Uh, it's just a beautiful experience. Having our conferences is a wonderful, just a wonderful experience. We're taught so much through general conference.
So what would you tell people today that are out there struggling with their testimony? Not only just in the church, but even their testimonies in Christ in general. That's, that's a lot what's happening today in our society. We're being,
people are falling away.
Yeah, we're just falling away.
From Christ, from God in Christ. They don't believe. I feel that it's so important that you do believe. It's so, there's no way that we just showed up here. This world was just created by itself. It just evolved out of nothing, or that it was here ahead of time before all time and eternity. This was created by God and by Jesus. This world was put together in 7 days, does the Bible. I say cling to the Bible, study the Bible, read the Bible, study the Book of Mormon. And we're studying the Book of Mormon now in church, which is absolutely beautiful. We have a wonderful Sunday school teacher who just really plans out her class.
A well-prepared class draws in listeners.
We have so many people now that have come into the class. We've had to move into one of the conference rooms. That we have so many people in our Sunday school.
Somebody fulfilling their measure and their calling.
That's good. Doing an excellent job. It's a blessing to have her as a teacher. We have Sister Campbell, just a wonderful woman with a strong testimony, and it's so important to have testimony. It's a beautiful thing to have testimony, and it's just and Satan is there. Oh, and since I've gone to the temple, Satan has done so many things. Probably within a week, one woman had some things to say about me, and she's somebody close to my family, and it really hurt me. Not that it's hurt, embarrassed. She just made up some stuff about me. I wanted to know, when did Bonnie get religion in her life? And just said some awful things.
Church member?
No, she's a non-believer. She doesn't believe in God. She doesn't believe in Jesus. And I've tried to talk to her about God and Jesus. She's older, and she thought she was going to die 5 years ago, and she can't wait to die because she thinks that it's just over, that there'll be nothing. And trying to explain to her that it isn't just
what over. A sad way to live.
Isn't it? That's very sad.
No purpose.
No purpose. Nope.
Let me close with this. Let me close with this. It's been a very, very, very good interview and conversation. I appreciate sharing this with us. This all happened, the temple you went to probably what, a month ago?
Yes, it's been a month.
Okay, and I'm going to ask a personal question here. If you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. But a month ago, you've come back after all this time, and then this last week, you got some medical news that you don't think go into details, but it could be life-threatening.
It is life-threatening. Well, it is life-threatening. Yeah, I was told that I have cancer of the bladder, and I've been in and out of the hospital over the last year with abdominal problems. I was diagnosed with diverticulitis, but there's just an awful lot of pain and discomfort in my abdominal area besides the bladder. So, and then this bladder issue has been going on for 2.5 years. So I don't know if they said there's several tumors, a large one and several. I don't know that if it started there and has eaten through the bladder, but we'll find out next week.
Now,
I'll have
now
surgery.
you know that the results of that could be chemo and could
Oh,
be a
it's going.
decline of life and everything, right? You understand that.
Oh, I know that.
But I asked you how you felt, and how do you feel about that, right? I mean, I
I
would be
feel
like concerned, things of that
no,
nature. How do
I'm
you feel?
grateful for the life that I've had and for finding my husband, or finding for having both husbands. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for my family, and I'm so grateful that I have Jesus Christ and God in my life, and I know where I'm going. I don't know which which kingdom I'm going to, but I know that this isn't it, and that it's going to be better
Yeah, good. Yeah, and I tell you, I can testify too
by
that
believing in God.
that's true. And then it's so simple too that if we just don't abandon our belief in Jesus Christ, we're promised a glory. All we have to do is
Yeah.
believe in Jesus Christ, we're promised a glory,
Yes,
right?
right.
And then according to our intelligence we gather and how we apply that intelligence and our understanding we gather, that qualifies us for exaltation.
Well,
Right?
I feel like I've run into friends that I felt like I've known forever. Well, we probably knew each other in the spirit world, is what we laugh and have said to one another. But when you come down here to gain knowledge, you come to this world to gain knowledge. And that's what I'm a little irritated with myself, is that I let myself quit gaining knowledge of more by staying away from the church. Whereas when you're in the church, you are gaining knowledge all the time, every day, when you're active in the church.
Yeah, if you're following the commandments of reading the Book of Mormon, I mean, the Book of Mormon is to be our survival manual going forward. The time coming, and oh, I can testify. That's my whole purpose for the church. I mean, I see just as much. I see more division today than I did 35 years ago in the
Well,
church.
that's what the Book of Mormon says. It tells you
Right.
that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's predicted everything that we're going through now and what we have yet to go through, or what's coming up.
Yeah,
It's
it's prophesied all this. Yeah, it has. And so that we cling to that. And I think that, that's what people need to hold on to right now with these trying
Oh,
times
they do.
is the fact that we have the Savior there. We have hope in that. And I think it's why you see a lot of that emphasized in general conference instead of the old talks, like we were talking earlier, the older talks, 1986, President Benson gives a worldwide devotional on the Constitution and the importance of the Constitution, the role that Constitution plays in the church, and that it's for everybody in the church in the whole world, right? You don't hear that much. Elder Oaks tried that a few years ago and a lot of backlash on the global level, right? But you just it's there's so much there. But if we just hold on to the faith, it gives us hope.
That is faith is hope. I mean, it keeps you going every day. It's a beautiful thing. You wake up in the morning, and I've been back active in the church for 2.5 years now, and it's just it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I look forward to going to church on Sunday.
And then before I said we're going to stop here, but I want to jump. You said something just now that I think is important for our viewers to listen to. You said back acting in the church 2.5 years. I know you, and I saw your road back, and that initial road back wasn't something that you just got here and said, I'm going to church, I've stopped all my bad habits, and I'm going to church. That 2.5 years to get to the temple a month ago was a process of building up, abandoning certain bad habits and things you've developed, right?
Well, I did a lot of praying, and prior to even moving back here, 6 months before I moved back here, I did a lot of praying about going back to church and being active, knowing that I wouldn't be able to drink. I love to have a Corona every once in a while, and if I go out, maybe I'd like to have a glass of wine. And I thought, wow, I won't be able to do that anymore if I want to be active in church. And it was nothing. It took me 6 months, and I had no desires. I got over the desire. The only time that I would have a desire in that 6 months was during the summer in the heat after I do yard work. Oh, nothing like a Corona. Oh, and
Yeah, go ahead.
no, and I just drink Canada Dry ginger ale now. If I have that thirst or whatever, it's nothing. I mean, it's just
Well, here
so easy.
on this channel, Courageous Conviction, we talk about the hard to talk about, the section 88, 77 through 81. And so we're talking about the reality of things so that everybody can relate. We're humans and we run through these trials. Sometimes at church, we kind of, we don't talk about certain things at church that maybe we should. And maybe we should. Maybe we talk about the stuff like now, like this on the podcast. But in this podcast, we try to talk about these difficult things. Well, Bonnie, I just want to say this. I appreciate you taking the time here, and glad to see you back on the covenant path. That you're strong in this. We wish you the best and everything for your health going forward.
Okay.
And we're thankful for the message you've given our viewers. This will be out there in not just YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, and Spotify, but all of our areas that we have put this out, and it'll be there for years for people to share in your testimony.
Good.
So we thank you for that. Courageous Conviction. If you like this kind of content, we intend to do more interviews with people and hear their stories of how they came back and they overcame the challenges that once pushed them and pulled them away from their Savior or from their covenant path in the church, Christ Latter-day Saints. And if you like this kind of content, please do us a favor, subscribe down below. It's free. It costs you nothing. And give us a thumbs up. It helps us in the algorithms to get this message out. Bonnie's testimony of the church and her comeback. And we again thank you for that. And we'll see you in our next video.